Hello and welcome to Hamilton the Podcast. I'm Vinton Bain.
And I am Robbie Herlocker, here today to wrap up the Hamilton Mixtape.
Now, we're recording this in the past because of podcasting. This is how it works.
Ooh, the magic of podcasts.
But current Robbie, as you're listening to this, is just returning. So what do you think it was like in New York for you?
Well, I think that it was New York was so wonderful. New York was so fantastic. They have buildings that have descriptions, and I'm sure that if I were recording this as future Robbie, I would have more details.
I'm jealous of future Vinton at the time of this being listened to because he's probably still not sick.
He's probably not sick. He's probably done with the editing of this episode, so he doesn't have all that hanging over his head.
So I apologize if I have any voice problems for this episode. I have been sick for 6 days now.
That's so ridiculous.
Bedridden for 4.5 of those days.
My goodness.
To where I couldn't really even move around the house because my sinuses were so filled up that when I moved, I became dizzy. Not just like, oh, I'm slightly dizzy. Like, I can't stand because I'm too dizzy.
Right. Yeah, we weren't even sure if we were going to be able to record tonight because you had to leave work to come here, right?
But I was feeling a little bit better, and our schedules weren't going to work out much more easy than they already been doing tonight. So
I guess there's something going around in Oklahoma City. There were some people at work that had something too. So
it's been taking people out left and right. It's like some kind of weird flu-cold mixture.
A flu-cold hybrid.
Sinus infection also possible. That being said, sickness being thrown out the window, we are here to talk about the mixtape. And our first song that we're going to be talking about, Who Tells Your Story?
That's right. This is sort of the culmination of the mixtape, that aside from the reprise that we have next, this is the last original song created for Mixtape Volume 1.
So this song is performed by The Roots and features performances by Ingrid Michealson and Common. It's produced by Illmind, who, with The Roots, we've seen a couple times on the mixtape now. But Ingrid Michealson is an American singer-songwriter. Her two highest charting singles are The Way I Am and Girls Chase Boys.
Oh, yeah. I like that song.
And it's a fun voice.
I just love everything Ingrid Michealson does.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I'm not too familiar, so maybe you'll have to fill me in with some of her work later.
I have a playlist.
But I do like her voice here on this song quite a bit. I think it fits really appropriately.
I actually didn't realize that Ingrid Michealson was doing some of the backgrounds and the chorus parts of this when I first heard it. I've listened to her whole Girls and Boys album.
Okay.
And she has such a wonderful voice, and it is recognizable. I don't know how I didn't pick up on it, but I think Common's rap was just so powerful and strong. I was just like, oh yeah, I want more of that. Let's get back to the stanza, back to the verses. This whole song is a combination of wonderful things, from Common's lyrics to Ingrid's song and the beauty of her voice, and just the themes of legacy and everything that Hamilton, an American musical, leads up to, with the idea of who tells your story. It's so well embodied in this song. So what can you tell us, Vinton, about Common the rapper?
Common is, as you mentioned, a rapper. He's also an actor, a film producer, and a poet. His first Grammy Award was for the Best R&B Song for the song Love of My Life with Erykah Badu. His album B was nominated for Best Rap Album at the 2006 Grammy Awards. He was awarded his second Grammy for Best Rap Performance by a Duo or Group for Southside featuring Kanye West, and he won the 2015 Golden Globe for Best Original Song and the 2015 Academy Award for Best Original Song for his song Glory from the 2014 film Selma, which he co-starred as civil rights leader James Bevel.
When I think of the song Southside, I don't first think of the Kanye West Common song. I think of Moby with Here We Are Now Going to the South Side. So for just a second when you said that, I thought, he is not in that song. What are you talking about?
You didn't know that Moby and Common are the same person?
Yeah, pretty much.
All three goes.
I can't see any differences.
It's kind of like when Garth Brooks did his indie rock thing, and he had the little goatee and went by Chris Gaines.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
He acted like no one would ever know, and he had Chris Angel hair. That's what it was. He had Chris Angel hair. That's not what happened here,
Oh,
people.
my
That's
goodness.
not what happened here. Common is also known for acting, as mentioned here with Selma, and he has been in a bunch of different things. And I was surprised when I looked at the list, but just to name a few: Smoking Aces, Street Kings, American Gangster, Wanted, Terminator Salvation,
Oh,
Date Night,
yeah.
Just Right, Happy Feet 2, New Year's Eve, Run All Night, and Being Charlie.
Wait, who was he in Happy Feet? No, wait. I never saw Happy Feet 2. I just saw Happy Feet 1. I need to go watch a sequel
Well, you
there.
do have a small child that you take care of quite
That's
often.
true, so I
you
should-
could easily watch Happy Feet too.
And have an excuse for it being socially acceptable. I would watch it on my own, I'm sure.
He also has starred in the AMC Western television series more recently, Hell on Wheels. And he narrated the award-winning documentary Bouncing Cats about one man's efforts to improve the lives of children in Uganda through hip-hop b-boy culture. So he's done a lot.
He has done a lot, which
Quite impressive.
which is impressive. It makes him a fantastic person to tell the story of this song.
Right.
Because he's going to dive into the questions of how will he be remembered, and you just routed off a bunch of his accomplishments, his achievements, the things he's worked hard to achieve, the things he's done in his life, and someone who has that many things on his resume, so to speak, has every right to raise the question, how will I be remembered?
Yeah.
So one thing I noticed you didn't fit into the description of Common is a quote from Entertainment Weekly, Mr. Bain.
Well, I do have one of those, as you can see by my notes.
Oh, I couldn't imagine.
Common was one of Miranda's inspirations for the George Washington character. Miranda said, "He's got a Washington-level moral authority." To hear him reference lyrical moments from the show in his verse that he wrote, quote, "I write hard rhymes like I'm running out of time," unquote, that's thrilling to me. As a lifelong Common fan, it gets very dusty in the room if I talk about it.
I love how meta it gets when you have a quote unquote when you're in the middle of a quote.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
It gets complicated to tell.
I also really like Lin-Manuel Miranda's way of saying that he will talk for a long time is to say it'll get dusty in the room. That took me a moment the first time I read it, and I was like, I like that. I'm going to start using that.
Yes. It's going to go so long that it gets dusty in the room. Dusty in the room. I appreciate that he is one of George Washington's, the influences for the George Washington character. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. He does have the stuff that Common raps about, the credibility in his lyrics, the intricacy in the way he formulates a verse. It's powerful.
Yeah. He's one of those few rappers that I really appreciate for trying to keep things positive. And
Yeah.
never wanting to lower themselves to some of the tropes of gangster rap.
Yeah, I remember back in the day when Big Willie style, when Will Smith had some song. I can't even remember what song it was, but I thought it was a big deal back then when he said to everybody, he said, "All you rappers out there, I dare you to route a verse without a curse." And Common, I mean, he curses, but he routes a verse that's very positive,
Right.
very encouraging, very, very challenging. Honestly,
Yeah.
he's not the kind of encouraging and positive that is not going to wrestle with the darkness in his culture. He's the kind of positive that says, hey, this is a dark culture. This is a scary place to live in the world sometimes, but you and me, we can find a way out. We can work hard. We can find a way to get to a better place. Let's do something together to make this world a brighter spot.
Yeah, absolutely. There is definitely a difference between the Safe for School Will Smith album of the 90s
Yes.
and Common's more social justice view of keeping things clean and focused and not necessarily clean, like you said, and he does curse, but keeping things positive
Yeah.
and trying to change the world.
The song begins with Ingrid's singing the words, "Will they tell your story? Who lives, who dies, who tells your story?" which is obviously the pickup from Hamilton, an American Musical. And on top of this introduction, Common has his running start into his verses when he just says, "This is the story of a. This is the story of a." He's introducing the fact that he's about to tell his own story if he can.
Yeah, I love the way that this song opens up. It's almost got that haunting beat with the layers of different vocals and the music all layered in. Even before the lyrics start, it's just so good and powerful.
Yeah, you get this idea of something bigger than you when the choir starts coming in with the and they are doing that. I mean, he's gonna actually reference a church choir singing later with with Trinity United, and then, but it opens up with that feeling of something larger than you that is really an important feeling to have throughout this whole song, right? Because this song is about how you while you're living are in the middle of a story, almost like he's unable to finish his sentence because he's still living his life. This is the story of Common is still living. Common is still writing his story. He's doing what he can to write the story, but when he dies, he has no control who lives, who dies, who tells his story. So this is a reflection on the fact that his own story is just a small piece of the human story, a small piece of the universe's narrative that is going to be told. And Common is going to try to find his place in the middle of this big, wide universe of stories.
So he comes in with this poetical verse of talking about his history and him wondering what he's going to become, wondering what his legacy will be, saying, "My mind flashes, I see the ashes of the masters who touch the masses. I ask if I'll ever be one." And he then begins to trace his history here, saying that he used to break dance down at Odell's, and he mentions the desires of a church choir, Trinity United, which is the church that he grew up in, his childhood church, Trinity United Church of Christ in Chicago.
That's the only reason that church is familiar to me is because I'm a political buff. Do you remember back in the 2008 election, I think, when that church became really prominent? Because it's the church Barack Obama attended.
Oh.
And one of the previous reverends of Trinity United Church of Christ was the Jeremiah Wright reverend, and you had the whole conflict back and forth. It led to a really good Obama speech after the fact when he was responding to all the accusations there. But Trinity United Church of Christ has a history in Chicago, has a history of being involved with liberation theology at different times and different types of things. Sometimes it gets into the controversial history that we saw during some of the presidential elections there when they were talking about Obama and his ties to the reverend at the time. But this church has been around a long time. It's interesting that it gets referenced here in a song about legacy where, honestly, I heard that church name. I thought of all of the terrible things that were said during the election about Jeremiah Wright.
Yeah.
And then when I looked up the church itself, I remembered there is so much good that Trinity United has done. And it's almost like that is a microcosm of what this story is trying to tell. This song is trying to tell the story that there are things in your own life that may be dark or scary or skeletons in your closet. And then there are things that are beautiful and lovely and fantastic that you could be bragging about. But when it comes to the end of the day, you don't get to decide which of those stories is played on the 9 o'clock news. That is something that the world is going to choose. And whether they say something good about you or bad about you, whether they remember the good things or the bad things, is really out of your control.
Yeah.
It's also a little interesting reference because Trinity Church is where Hamilton attended and where a lot of the Hamilton family is buried.
Yeah, in New York.
New York. That's true.
Not in Chicago.
That's right.
But I always think of that same thing when I hear it. I'm like, Trinity, but this is a different one. This is not the Hamilton one. Because this is a Hamilton mixtape, you can't help but unite these things
of course.
in your mind.
It also made this a very difficult verse for me to listen to the first time I listened through the mixtape because I thought, they're fleshing out Hamilton's narrative for a little bit because I thought, Trinity, I knew Trinity Church was where he was buried. I knew that that's where he attended for a while. I expected that he was trying to flesh out a Hamilton autobiographical stanza, but that's clearly not what it was. And as I listened to it a second time, I was like, oh yeah, Alexander Hamilton never did do breakdancing down at Odell's. That would have been kind of funny to see a guy in a powdered wig doing breakdancing.
So Common continues on and he says, memories divided by perception. Will it be water for chocolate or resurrection? And what he's referencing here are two of his albums, and he's wondering what people are going to remember him by. This early album where he was more braggadocious in his beginnings, or his later albums where he picked up this political fervor and wanted to change the world and wanted to start addressing social issues.
Right. Resurrection was the more recent one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. I didn't remember the names of his albums. I don't know if I ever knew the names of his albums, but I was listening to this and I just thought of the metaphor of when I was going to church as a kid. I was thinking about my mind was already primed for church metaphors because talking about a church choir, talking about Trinity United, and then you see that there's these perceptions of water for chocolate or resurrection. So my mind immediately went to a baptism metaphor, thinking that there are a bunch of kids lining up on Easter Sunday to get baptized, but they're just doing it for this treat they might get afterwards, or the chocolate or the prize or something, instead of doing it for the purpose of, the new life resurrection message you get on Easter. But so there are so many levels to the way that these words interact with each other. And I appreciate that coming from anyone else, these lyrics couldn't have made as much sense as they do coming from Common. But this idea right here, referencing his 2 albums that he put out, I think it harkens really, this is a really good place for the stanza to go after opening up with his mind being focused on the ashes of the masters. Because he's been dreaming about what it'll be like if he ever gets to become one of the grand masters themselves. If he gets to be someone who's remembered for his great work, and then he says, hey, this is my great work. These were 2 of the pieces. One of them more, like you said, braggadocious than the other, but to dwell upon how he will be remembered and whether any of those things will put him into the same category as the masters is exactly what the song is about. As the lyrics continue there, he goes into the line saying, the path to perfection is rarely achieved. I head in that direction. I dream and believe. Here, Common is acknowledging that no one is ever perfect. None of us are perfect. This isn't a perfect podcast. If that's what you came to us for, I'm sorry. But we are trying. We're doing our best. We understand that we are heading in the direction of perfection. We're trying to make sure that we're focused in the right place so that maybe tomorrow we will be better off than we were yesterday. And so we head in the direction of where we want to end up, knowing that maybe we'll have some albums out there that are braggadocious and some pitfalls early on that aren't as good as the thing you are remembered for, hopefully, in the end. As he's wrapping up the first stanza here, he mentions again, in case we lost it or forgot it already, that he's from Chicago, that Windy City was blowing.
That's right. We move into the hook here with Michealson again. Who lives, who dies, who holds on to all of our lives? Time and time and time again, will they tell your story in the end? Who lives, who dies, who tells your story?
I love that addition in the middle of the line, who holds on to all of our lives. It's as if your legacy is an actual physical thing that other people hold in their hands.
Yeah. I noticed that both of us keep adding the word of.
Yeah.
All
who
of
holds on
it's hard.
to all our lives.
Our lives. Just so we don't get any angry tweets out there.
You know the lyrics, right, guys?
And then we move into verse 2 by Black Thought of The Roots.
Yes.
He comes in saying, the anticipation of Rose as time froze, which is him quoting himself from a Roots song, Act 2, The Love of My Life, which also features Common. And in its original context, this is a line that describes the feeling before a performance, which originally says, the anticipation of Rose as time froze. I stared off the stage with my eyes closed and drove into the deep cosmos, camera flashes and lighters. The impact pushed back the first 5 rows. This fits into the theme of the song as it's about creating an impact or a lasting imprint.
That's true. I hadn't actually listened to that song before, but I didn't realize it features Common as well. It's almost as if Black Thought's mind is racing because he just heard Common's stanza and he goes back to a time when he worked with Common.
Oh, yeah.
And so all the things that Common wanted to be remembered for, that's not what Black Thought thinks of first when he thinks of Common. Here's Common's story. He hears the story of Common and he thinks, oh yeah, remember that one time that I passed Common in the studio and we put a song together and we did that recording? To me, that's an example of how you can do these huge things in your life, but if you're a jerk to that guy in the parking lot at the shopping center, then that's the only thing that person ever remembers you for. It's as if your legacy is always being written, whether you're paying attention to it or not. Here's Black Thought introducing his verse with a memory of when he did collaborate with Common.
A commentator online also pointed out that this lyric could be misheard here as anticipation of Rosa's time froze, which also fits into the civil rights theme of the next 2 lines.
Oh, of Rosa's time. I thought you said Rosa's time. I gotcha. Rosa Parks.
Yeah, Rosa Parks. And I really like that idea too. It could really go either way.
Yeah.
And he does move into these next two lines here saying the black men in the morgue were John Does, lynched for whistling at blonde does,
Mm.
which was a common thing back in the civil rights movement. There were lynchings for when white men felt like black men were coming onto their white women, whether it was daughters, wives, friends, even anything. They would then gather the posses and do these horrible things.
Yeah, that almost makes me, putting those lines into context of the misheard lyrics there about Rosa's time, that makes it all the more relevant to have that misheard lyric there, because he is transporting us through this stanza to a period of time when it was even more unsafe to be a person of color than it is today. We talk through the Black Lives Matter movement that's happening all around us. We've heard people sharing their stories and what it's like to be afraid and to go through to go through checkpoints without the certainty that you'll be able to make it, or without the comfort that comes with the privilege of being a white man. And so to transport us back to a period of time when it was even more unsafe, where you have black men in the morgue who are not respected, who are just John Does, so their name will never be remembered. Talk about legacy. And these black men were lynched for what they were doing. And then Black Thought continues the verse with putting himself into that context, saying, I said a prayer with my eyes closed, because he didn't know what would happen to him in a context like that.
He says that he's been a bullet on the brink, but being a young king is probably different than you think. He encourages you there that it's not always easy to see who somebody is from the outside. And he says, the quills that I dip into the ink go to document, and you'll remember me when I'm extinct. That idea of legacy right there, like what you write, what lyrics that he has put down will be remembered, will be his legacy.
That's true. Speaking of misheard lyrics, by the way, you talk about being a young king. I totally heard that as kink every time. I don't know if you want to keep that in the podcast or not, but I heard it as kink. I was like, what is he talking about here? This isn't.
I mean, it is to rhyme with brink and think, so it's not too out of the question that would be misheard. He continues, yo, sing the carol of a young pharaoh who slew Leviathan with one arrow. And this is more religious references here.
Yeah.
Leviathan is the giant biblical fish brought up in the book of Job, commonly interpreted as a sea monster, and is used by Thomas Hobbes, the English philosopher who wrote a book bearing the name, outlining the ideal structure for the Commonwealth. It's considered as one of the earliest works of social contract theory.
Yeah, and speaking to biblical literature and the metaphor of Leviathan, it's also often in the context of creation stories, with the idea of creation by combat, with chaos and order fighting with each other, and Leviathan being slain by the god of order to take this creature of chaos out completely. And so there's this whole creation by combat metaphor we could go into in the middle of it all, which is interesting, but probably not relevant in this context. But yeah, biblical metaphor from, I mean, even down to the young Pharaoh concepts. I mean,
absolutely.
We talk about Pharaoh all over the place in the Old Testament and the Hebrew Bible.
Yeah, I like that there's this double meaning to Leviathan, both being a monster and the ideal society when it comes to Hobbes' work.
Yeah.
And it represents both greatness and danger. And here, slaying it with a single arrow, this liberation is showing to overcome both this monster of nature and this monster of society. And so it's the people of color struggle to overcome both the nature of what they've been given and the society around them and how they react to that, and being able to be that pharaoh, to rise up, to be that king, to slay it with an arrow.
We could talk for a while if we wanted to about just the poetic imagery of as I revolve through the gun barrel, talking about a revolver itself.
Yeah, I
love
love
the verb.
it. Black Thought's lyrics are just so wonderfully knit together.
Yeah. Speaking of knit, just to watch it unravel. Next lyrics. I tell them have heart must travel.
I always wondered where this phrase came from.
Yeah.
Like, have blank must travel. And I actually looked it up. And while this is a reference, I think, to the TV Western Have Gun Will Travel, about a gunfighter calling himself Paladin who hires himself out as a mercenary to help those who can afford his services but offers it free to poorer people who need his help. The actual title for that was taken from an old advertisement, old personal ads that would say things like, have tux will travel, asking for it. Like, these are the things we need in a person for this job. We need you to have a tux and we need you to travel. And so I was like, oh, okay, I've heard these things before in music a lot, especially the Black Keys. There's a Black Keys songs, Have Love Will Travel. And I always wondered, where does this come from? What does it mean? I think I always took it slightly differently. I didn't realize they were saying these are the two qualities needed. Have love will travel. Have heart must travel.
Interesting. I had never heard anyone talk about the etymology of have heart will travel. That's cool. I love the way he articulates this next line with keeping his legacy alive, even if I don't survive till the curtain call. He's talked about being this young pharaoh who slayed the Leviathan with a single arrow, but now he's saying that I may not survive to the curtain call, but maybe the way I fight, the way I go out fighting for what I believe, for how I live my life, maybe that is how I keep my legacy alive.
I really like that he does say that, even if I don't survive till the curtain call, because Alexander Hamilton himself didn't survive till his own curtain call here in our musical Hamilton.
Right, we're to the theater metaphors now, specifically. Black Thought wraps up his particular stanza, bringing this idea to a head with the idea that Common already put forward when he says, first of all, realize what we're working towards. Find what we're searching for. I skipped a couple words in there because it's a family-friendly podcast. But he said, you got to focus on what we're working towards. Common said himself that the path to perfection is rarely achieved. I head in that direction, I dream and believe. Here, Black Thought is echoing that with the notion that we're working toward something and we got to keep our eyes focused on that thing, working towards it completely. And Ingrid comes in with her beautiful lyrics, who lives, who dies, who tells your story. And Black Thought's last words on this stanza are, the earth, my name, written in cursive form, which is such a powerful way to end that.
Absolutely, yeah. And in our verse 3, we see Common come back in, saying frozen in time, almost referencing back to Black Thought's intro.
Yeah, his verse started out with the anticipation rose as time froze, and he's just continuing that idea.
And I like that Common here, when he starts out his third verse, he's referencing popular songs. Frozen in time, I can't let it go.
Oh
let
my
it
goodness.
Go, let it go. I can't sing even less. I can sing even less when I'm sick. And then says Nat Cole, Unforgettable.
I love Nat Cole. Nat
Obviously
King Cole.
referencing Nat King Cole. And his song Unforgettable, and the Disney movie Frozen, and the song Let It Go.
Vinton, unforgettable. That's what you are.
And I like that he uses that to reference his own drive to create songs that will outlive him, that people will remember, that will be these pop cultural milestones.
Right. Can I pause for a second to just say that I'm a little disappointed that you caught the Disney references before I did?
Frozen. It doesn't happen very often.
Let It Go. That's kind of awesome. He here continues the notion of how he's up on a pedestal. He says, the pedestal I'm on, I'm going to end up on a Federal Reserve note, your money with a hip hop quote. This is a very Alexander Hamilton reference that Hamilton is the $10 founding father. Common is putting himself onto that level, saying, maybe I'm on my way to get to that point.
Absolutely. That maybe I'll be big enough and changing this country and doing something good in this country that I will be on your currency one day.
Right. Maybe I'll change some legislation with some stuff that I wrote.
Maybe some of my lyrics that actually change it will end up as a quote on the bill.
Right. That'd be kind of cool. But the thing that goes along with sitting on a pedestal is that you can either be there above everybody else for everybody to worship, praise, look at in admiration, or you could fall.
Yeah.
The pedestal is a dangerous place to stand. And so here he is singing about how he wants to be remembered, but let's remember that you have no control who lives, who dies, who tells your story. He continues his comparison to Alexander Hamilton's life, I think, talking about the boats that they came on. His ship is in the harbor now. See if you can spot him. Another immigrant coming up from the bottom.
And I like that idea can speak to so many different places. It can speak to immigrants still coming over today.
Yeah.
It can speak to obviously the slave ships that came over.
Right.
And it can speak to Alexander Hamilton himself, who came over on a ship. So there's so many different levels that can be read into that.
I like the way he wraps that up with going from boats that we came on to lights with our name on. And you mentioned the slave boats already, but to me, if you put it into that context, you have people of color being brought in on slave ships, and then now you have huge marquees with the name Common advertising that someone has come this far. Someone has gotten this much fame. He is on a pedestal with his lights shining, with a headline show. People are looking to him now, and oh, how the times have changed, even though they have further to go. Common references that, saying, through hard times, we spark minds to keep the flame on. I write hard rhymes like I'm running out of time.
Yeah, just so many different Hamilton references throughout those lyrics. It's so good. He says, truthfully, my stopwatch is one with the divine. Centuries from now, they'll play my freestyle and say, this is the brilliance of a Black American child. I love this looking forward that the founding fathers did it. They knew that they were doing something. And I love people looking at their creative work and looking forward to seeing what it might do, the impact. It's more than just making a quick dollar, that I'm wanting to impact people with my work.
Yeah. And man, I appreciate that Common is specifically taking that founding father approach here, saying that the work I do, if I do it well, then it will be able to have ripples throughout history. It is something that people may look back on and say, hey, there's this brilliance in a Black American child endowed by the streets and Chicago proud, known to move in silence but can be loud. He talks about his own story, saying, maybe I can have that type of an impact, continuing with a legacy that people talk about.
And for those that don't know, Chai is a nickname for Chicago, or as my friends used to say, Chi-Town.
And building on the legacy of Chi-Town, as you say, he's talked about how he wants to leave a certain type of legacy, and he's talked about how he wants to make a positive impact on the world, reaching for this goal of perfection that he would eventually get to. And he just references the legacy that he's having to overcome. The fact that people aren't always going to remember him as the name in lights, because sometimes people will look at him and talk about the urban aggression. And we know what that's code for in political speak. The urban aggression that people have in the inner cities of places like Chicago. And man, people of color have so much disadvantage over people who are given the privilege of being white. And here he's referencing that fact. He's saying that the noise of beat girls and boys building to destroy the perception of urban aggression. He says, my life is a progression of chords, wrote the oppressors. A chorus, my story is the glory of the Lord. He's pointing towards something. He's building towards something. He's progressing towards something. And he wants that thing that they're progressing towards to overcome and overshadow that thing that people say about urban aggression. And he wants to say that that's a thing, that's a stereotype that we can overcome if we just push forward.
Yeah, I just love that, man. It makes me want to listen to Common all day long, that attitude, that wanting to change the world.
So, Vinton, if you were to, unfortunately, carry this sickness unto death, then how would you want to be remembered? Let's put it this way. What would you want people to say about your legacy at your funeral?
Oh, man.
I just sprung this on you. How do you want to be remembered?
I want people to be remembered as a positive light in the world.
That's a good thing.
A beam of positivity in the people around me.
Yeah, I like that.
And I like the idea of flipping that social norm of, like he said, urban aggression, that they're standing up toward that and changing the way that the narrative is presented.
Yeah, I think that might be a part of what I want to be remembered for in this. I want to be remembered as someone that has made a positive impact on the world and changed the world in a positive way somehow. I think that what I want out of my life in a lot of ways is I want people to come out of encounters with me feeling more encouraged, but also more challenged to be on the road towards that perfection. Not in the sense that I am further along the road of perfection than most people. I'm not. I have a lot to progress towards in my own life, but I want people to see that I'm trying. I want people to see that I'm loving and that I'm pursuing someone and something that is bigger than me. And I mean, just to put it in my own personal terms, I want people to see me as a Christian influence who is working to leave people encouraged in the way that Jesus encouraged them, challenged in the way that Jesus challenged them. And I want my life to be one that is about challenging oppressors and standing up for the underdogs, standing up for people that are hurt and who are oppressed. And so, yeah, this story that Common and Black Thought tell through this song is not my story. I don't want to appropriate that in any way, but we all have stories. We all have our own encounters, our own oppression, our own struggles, our own pains, our own joys. And I think that something that is beautiful in this song is that this is two guys and a girl getting together to sing about their own lives. I guess Ingrid doesn't really sing anything autobiographical, but you have the idea that you are telling a story with your life.
Right.
You are writing the pages of your narrative while you're still alive. You're working hard to do what you can to point the narrative towards something positive, to point the world towards something better than oppression, better than injustice. But at the end of the day, when we are done telling the story, we pass that story along to our benefactors, to our descendants, to our heirs, and they are the ones who get to control it. And they are the ones that will tell the story about us, who will stand up and read our epitaphs. And that is a scary and beautiful thing about the way the world works.
Absolutely. And we end the song with Ingrid Michealson, and that takes us out of Who Tells Your Story. It's a beautiful song.
It really is. But it brings us into the next song, which we've wrapped up with the idea of who tells your story. How do you pass this story along to the next generation? And then we have a reprise of two fathers singing to their children about how they want to make the world a better place for them. It's the idea that as these two songs feed into each other, you remember that the kids you're raising or the people you're impacting in the world, the next generation is the future. The next generation are the ones who will be telling your story.
Yeah, so we have our final song of the mixtape, Dear Theodosia Reprise by one of my favorites, Chance the Rapper, and Francis and the Lights, one of your favorites, right,
Yeah,
Robbie?
I like Francis and the Lights a lot. Yeah, I think I might pick Chance the Rapper over Francis and the Lights. I like Chance the Rapper a lot too.
This song is produced by Nico Segal, Peter Cottontail, Francis and the Lights, and Chance the Rapper. Chance the Rapper is a rapper, singer, songwriter, and record producer. Apart from his solo career, he is also a member of the Chicago collective Save Money and has worked as the lead vocalist for the band The Social Experiment. Last year, he released his third mixtape, Coloring Book, earning him 3 Grammy Awards, including Best Rap Album. It's the first streaming-only album to ever receive and win a Grammy nomination. One of my favorite things about Chance the Rapper also is that he refuses to charge money for his music and shuns music labels.
That is quite a difference from a lot of celebrities out there.
Yeah.
And I don't fault celebrities. I mean, we talked in the last episode about how I've had to overcome a lot of biases I had towards celebrities who complain about their celebrity status or complain about having money or something. But in this case, I mean, celebrities have the right to stand up for their own intellectual properties. But Chance is just doing it for the impact he can leave on this world.
Yeah, one of the cool things that shows that is I think this week it was that, well, this week recording this, obviously weeks from now, when you're listening to this, Chance the Rapper donated $1 million to Chicago public schools.
Oh man, I wish I had $1 million to donate.
It's such a great thing to see somebody doing that because Chicago public schools are notorious for being really hard places to grow up and hard places to go to school.
Yeah, and that is awesome to hear of him doing that much work.
Francis and the Lights is a musical project led by Francis Farewell Starlight. The term "and the lights" refers to both the lights on the stage and the pixels on the computer screen, but he has said that there are no members, quote unquote, of Francis and the Lights. It is me and whomever else is involved, including you.
So that anyone who's in the room with him is a part of this musical project that's going on.
That's right.
That the way you receive the music is a part of the music itself.
Yeah.
It's an encounter that you are immersing yourself into. You are joining into the experience of what is the live music of Francis and the Lights, or what he does with the music.
Yeah. It's really cool. And those other two names that we mentioned there in the production side of this song is Nico Segal, a trumpeter known best for his work with his longtime friend Chance the Rapper. He and Chance frequently collaborate on different projects. You'll hear him on some of his mixtapes. And Peter Cottontail, who's in a band with Nico and Chance, The Social Experiment, who released their album Surf in 2015 to much critical acclaim.
I thought Peter Cottontail was a bunny.
Well, yes, but he also dabbles in other things.
He also surfs, apparently.
No, he just raps about surfing.
Oh, okay.
Or performs the music for raps about surfing. Yes. Multi-talented bunny rabbit.
That's it's ridiculous, but it's fun. There's not a lot for us to cover on the historicity of this song because we've already talked about it when reviewing Hamilton, an American Musical. We covered Dear Theodosia in a good amount of depth. So if you want to go back and catch that episode, we'll try to put a link in the show notes to how that works. Do you like how I just throw out there, Vinton, that you're going to put a link in the show notes?
I'll do it.
Just in case you remember it or not. I commit you to things.
But it is interesting that Chance the Rapper is here singing Dear Theodosia. This is obviously the second time we've heard this song on the mixtape. And he had his first child just recently. In his 2016 track, Angels, it details his quest to, quote, clean up the streets and make a better world for his daughter, which is that theme that is carried through the song in Dear Theodosia, that will make this world a better place for you. So it's a really cool connection there to some of his own work that he's done.
Oh, yeah, it's true. I do have to say that I really, really enjoy the Regina Spektor version of this song.
Yeah.
It's really good. I want her to sing me to bed each night. I want her to sing to me all the time. But I was a little disappointed that we didn't have the back and forth of two narrators singing to each other in this song. So when I got to the Reprise and saw that Chance the Rapper and Francis and the Lights were doing this track, it made me really happy. And Chance, the way he sings the introductory verse here is so raw and vulnerable that it is emotional to me. Regina Spektor is so polished and perfect and beautiful, and I love her. But the raw emotion in Chance's voice as he sings these lyrics, you hear that he is a father singing to his child. I am transported into this moment and into this emotion of someone holding their newborn child, wanting to make the world a better place for them.
Yeah, it's really hard to judge the difference between the two versions of Dear Theodosia on this mixtape. They're so vastly different.
They really are.
This one, I really enjoy the vocal effects that are used on the track. It's really unique and interesting, and at first I was like, this is weird, and I'm not sure I like it, and then it grew on me, and I was like, yep, I really like this. I want to hear this more.
Yeah, I felt the same way. Well, honestly, Chance the Rapper's verse caught me immediately. That one gripped me immediately, and I wasn't terribly impressed at first with the trumpet coming in and some of the remixed auto tunes. Some of the feeling that the second verse has, even loving Francis and the Lights, it wasn't exactly what I wanted, because I wanted more of that raw vulnerability in the voice, in the human voice of Chance the Rapper there. But then I felt like it got a little too electronic.
Oh, yeah.
At a certain point, just because it took me from this human moment to this electrical moment. And it broke it the first time I listened. And as I listened to it over and over again, it really grew, not just to where I appreciated it or tolerated it, but to where it means something to me. This version of the song is impactful.
Definitely so.
And you talked about the trumpeter Nico Segal, and the way he comes in there, it does seem very exposed and very, it's almost out of the blue. It's not out of the blue, but it's almost as if it doesn't belong
Right.
in this song. And to me, the way the musicality of that works, it conveys this vulnerability that Chance the Rapper just sang about. It conveys this vulnerability of someone who is exposed completely, so that every little twitch in the tonal variation of the trumpet is audible. You hear every little change in his tone, every little thing he does. If he messes up slightly, you're going to catch it because he is exposed, he's vulnerable, and to me, that is the emotion of this song. It's two men holding their children, expressing emotions that are too frequently by society deemed weak emotions or deemed feminine emotions. And in this context, you have the entire notion that toxic masculinity needs to be destroyed, and men can be emotional, and men should be emotional if they want to be strong, truly connected, mature people, wise people, emotionally mature individuals. And I love this song. I will always love this song, and the importance that it has in the narrative of the musical with Burr and Hamilton, and just the context of this mixtape means something powerful to me. And I just love it.
Yeah. It's a great way to end our mixtape with that idea of carrying the message on to the next generation, to the next people. And yeah, what a beautiful way to end it, saying, hey, carry this message on. Let more people know.
Yes. On the outro there, when they have the voices on top of each other and the almost a cappella feeling of the way they end this song together, they have the tracks kind of merging, the lines kind of going on top of each other, and it kind of blurs the lines together where it sounds like, someday you will know you're strong enough foundation. You'll know that you have a strong foundation and you can go do something in your life one day, someday. It's that notion of looking to the future, looking to the time that they will accomplish something bigger than the legacy that their parents left them.
Well, Lin-Manuel Miranda was supposed to have Volume 2 out by the time we finished talking about Volume 1, and I'm a little upset that he didn't.
Come on, get on it, Lin.
I need Volume 2 already.
Yep. Plan your life around me, Lin. It's not like you've been busy with anything else, or there's not a Disney musical or 2 in the works for you.
But that's going to wrap up the mixtape for us. We're going to be back in 2 weeks to talk with Robbie about his trip and seeing Hamilton in actual live and in person.
That's right. I'm excited to have a full episode dedicated to just unpacking the live experience for you in a very personal way.
Remember, you can always support the Graphomania Podcast Network on Patreon, patreon.com/Graphocast. Get in contact with us, contact@graphocast.com. Tweet at us @Graphocast, GRAPHOCAST. Personally, I'm @FleshEater.
And I'm @Alpha Knight. And I hope you've enjoyed our coverage of Hamilton Mixtape Volume 1, even though it may not have been a John Trumbull painting.
This has been a Graphomania production. If you would like to hear more podcasts, go to graphocast.com, GRAPHOCAST.com. Follow us on Twitter @Graphocast and like the Graphomania page on Facebook for news and updates.